Hey guys, tonight we're not walking through the marble halls of empires or the smoky courts of kings. We're stepping far, far back. Back before the first city, before the first wall, before even the word home meant anything at all. Tonight, we curl up beside a fire that flickers inside the darkness of deep time. You probably wouldn't last a day here, or a night for that matter, because out there everything wants to eat you, the cold bites like a living thing, and comfort is a miracle you haven't invented yet. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're here, comment your location and what time it is where you're watching from. It's a small ritual, our own kind of digital campfire. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You sit beneath a sky so wide it feels infinite, a ceiling of obsidian dusted with cold fire. The night hums with the pulse of unseen creatures, rustling grass, wings cutting the dark, a distant cry that makes the hair at your neck rise. The fire before you crackles, its orange tongue licking at the damp air, its smoke winding upward like a prayer. You shift closer. The heat feels like protection, though you know it's a fragile one. Your body still remembers the day, the ache of walking miles, the raw edges of hunger, the strange, quiet satisfaction of surviving another sunset. Here, the earth is both mother and predator. You share her, but she owes you nothing. Across from you, a few others gather. Their faces are marked by soot and light, the shadows of flame painting them in motion, half animal, half ghost. A child curls against its mother's arm, thumb pressed to lip. A man sharpens a stone blade even though night has already claimed the hunt. Someone hums, a low sound, tuneless but rhythmic, a melody born from breath and bone. There are no words for this yet, no song, no home, not even sleep. But still, you all know what's coming. The surrender of consciousness, the quiet fading into another kind of world. Fire changes everything. Before it, darkness ruled completely. After it, you rule just a little, a fragile kingdom made of light and ash. Fire doesn't just cook or warm, it defines the edge between safety and the wild. Even now, in your modern apartment with your electric lamps and radiator, you're chasing the same comfort, that flicker, that warmth, that orange heartbeat that tells you you're safe. Historians still argue whether humans first tamed fire for cooking or for warding off predators. Maybe it was both. But one quirky theory suggests that fire changed not only what we ate, but when we could rest. It gave us time, long, glowing hours after sunset when the mind could wander. Some anthropologists call this the birth of storytelling, of memory, of imagination itself. You stare into that ancient glow. The sparks rise like small souls, vanishing into the cold void above. The fire talks in its crackle, soft, unpredictable, alive. Someone pokes it with a stick, and for a moment, the shadows jump like dancers against the cave wall. It's strange to think, you, in your blanket now, are part of this same ritual. That light from your screen is just another campfire, holding back the night while your mind drifts toward rest. The night deepens. The stars sharpen. You hear the rhythmic breathing of others, each person wrapped in animal hide, skin pressed to the dirt floor. Maybe they dream, though the concept doesn't exist yet. What would they even dream about? The hunt? The sky? Fire itself? Archaeologists once found traces of ash and charred bone at a site over 1 million years old, the remains of a hearth in what's now South Africa. Beside it, faint impressions in the soil suggest that bodies once lay there, curled around the dying embers. One of the earliest beds, if you can call it that, made not of wood or cloth, but of heat and smoke. You shift your weight, feeling the phantom of that ancient ache in your own back. It's strange how survival then meant something so simple: warmth, shelter, breath. You imagine what it was to close your eyes in that world. The fear of what waited in the dark wasn't metaphorical, it was teeth, eyes, motion. Yet somehow you slept. Because even then, long before civilization, you needed dreams. Not for escape, but for repair. Even animals dream, the twitch of a paw, the ripple of unseen memory. So maybe that first sleep by firelight wasn't primitive at all. Maybe it was sacred. A spark pops and the group stirs. One figure, the eldest perhaps, feeds a branch into the fire, watching the glow return. There's reverence in the gesture, not worship, but recognition. Fire, the fragile god of the night, must be kept alive. If it dies, so might you. You think about how many times this scene has repeated, billions of nights, millions of fires, countless eyes watching the same flames, all the way up to this very moment, where your small glowing screen flickers in the dark. Maybe, in a way, we've never left that circle. You wake, though you never really slept the way you do now. Back then, sleep came in fragments, like chapters with no endings. You doze, stir, roll onto the dirt, drift off again. The fire has dimmed, reduced to red coals, and the wind slides through the mouth of the cave like a cold whisper. The world around you is both vast and intimate. The air smells of smoke, damp stone, and the faint iron tang of earth. The ceiling drips in slow rhythm. Somewhere in the distance, something moves, four-legged, deliberate, heavy. Your eyes open fully. Shelter. That's what you've been learning for generations. The difference between open sky and cover, between freezing and surviving. You don't call it a home, not yet. You just know that certain shapes in the landscape offer safety. A hollow in a cliff, a fallen tree, a low cave facing away from the wind. Each one is a small miracle. You rise quietly and glance toward the cave mouth. The moon glows pale beyond it, casting long, trembling shadows of the tall grass outside. The group around you shifts in their sleep, a cluster of slow, rhythmic breaths. Someone coughs, another mumbles and rolls over. The fire cracks faintly, as if it too were dreaming. You step to the edge and look out. The night looks endless, but your instincts read it like a book. There's movement in the brush, a rustle too heavy for the wind. You grip the sharpened stick beside you, a humble defense, but better than bare hands. The fear that curls in your chest is older than words. It's the original anxiety, the one buried deep in every human heartbeat. Don't be prey. Anthropologists say early humans didn't sleep like we do, a solid 8 hours under warm blankets. They probably had 2 or 3 short sleep cycles broken by watchfulness. Half sleeping, half listening. The body needed rest, the mind couldn't afford it. Historians still argue whether this fragmented rest shaped early cooperation, the need for groups to huddle together, to share vigilance. Maybe this was where society began, in the choice to trust someone enough to close your eyes beside them. Outside, the wilderness doesn't sleep. Hyenas cackle in the distance, an eerie, broken laughter that vibrates against the stone. A chorus of insects hums around you, relentless and hypnotic. The smell of crushed grass mixes with the musk of animals you can't see. You feel both alone and surrounded, the paradox of the wild. Your shelter is nothing grand, a hollow scraped from limestone, its walls scarred by water and time. But to you, it's the difference between life and death. Archaeologists have found similar shelters across Africa and Europe, soot-stained ceilings, ancient hearths, layers of bones and ash. Each one tells a quiet story of endurance. You crouch beside the sleeping forms again. One of them, a child, stirs and whimpers. Without thinking, you place a hand on their shoulder. A simple, wordless reassurance. Comfort, the most human of instincts, already exists here, long before language. The night grows colder. You feed the fire a few sticks. Sparks rise, painting the rock walls in fleeting constellations. The cave seems to breathe with you. Inhale, exhale, glow, fade. You think of the day ahead, the hunt, the endless walking, the thirst. But for now, in this small hollow of stone and shadow, you are safe. The cave cradles your heat like a mother's hand cupping a flame. Modern scientists talk about circadian rhythms, the dance of sleep and waking that follows light. For early humans, it was the moon and the fire that choreographed that rhythm. When the moon rose, its silver light replaced the sun's gold, and when the fire burned low, you knew it was time to rise. Tend it, guard it, feed it. Sometimes, the moonlight reached deep into the cave and touched the walls. You can imagine a hand tracing those shapes, maybe a child's hand, curious about the glowing rock. Centuries later, another hand would press red pigment there. A beginning of art, born from boredom or wonder or the need to say we were here. A quirky archaeological tidbit. In some Paleolithic shelters, scientists have found layers of crushed herbs and leaves beneath where people slept, a natural mattress with insect-repelling properties. Not only did our ancestors understand comfort, they practiced hygiene. Civilization, it seems, begins with a good night's sleep. The wind sighs again, curling around the entrance. You lie back down, the dirt cool against your skin, and watch the sparks fade. There's no pillow, but you tuck your arm beneath your head. Outside, the stars hang steady, ancient witnesses to your tiny warmth. For a long while, you just breathe. The world feels infinite, yet somehow small enough to fit within the rhythm of your chest. Every heartbeat echoes with an older memory of fear, of curiosity, of survival. And in that fragile balance, you drift again. Not into the deep, undisturbed sleep you know now, but into the fractured, primal rest that belongs to the Stone Age, where safety is never certain, and the line between dream and waking is just another shadow cast by the fire. The fire is awake before you are. Its slow breath rolls through the cave, casting long orange tongues across the stone. You blink, caught between sleep and waking, unsure if you've dreamed at all. Dreams, if they came, are nothing like stories. They're flashes, running water, leaping fire, the shape of an animal that might be real or memory. You stretch, bones stiff from the hard earth. Around you, the others stir. A woman feeds a dry branch into the flame. The light reveals a smear of ash on her cheek like paint. Someone yawns, another scratches at their shoulder. No one speaks. There are no words yet, just grunts and the soft click of stone tools. Outside, dawn is slow and gray, the sun reluctant to rise over a world still misted with night. You sit near the fire and hold your hands over it, palms forward, fingers splayed. The heat bites and soothes at once. This, right here, is the first blanket humanity ever knew. Not woven, not stitched, but alive, heat that moves, that breathes, that must be fed. Fire is a demanding companion. If you ignore it, it dies. If you respect it, it guards you. That's a relationship as old as fear itself. You think about the way its light touches faces, soft on one side, shadowed on the other. It's as if the fire decides who you are, half glowing, half gone. Long before gods, before halos, before art, this was the first halo, the circle of light around a living body in darkness. Archaeologists found the remnants of ancient hearths layered like tree rings, one built on another, a record of countless nights spent keeping that warmth alive. Charcoal, ash, bone fragments, the archaeology of comfort. They can even see how often the fires were rebuilt, sometimes every day, sometimes only when a storm blew them out. You imagine that rhythm, the daily ceremony of light. Historians still argue whether early humans understood the chemistry of fire or only its mystery. Did they know it consumed air? Did they notice how wet wood smoked, or how dry leaves snapped bright? Maybe it didn't matter. Fire didn't need understanding to be sacred. The smell of it clings to your skin, into your hair. You rub your fingers together and feel the rough texture of soot. A strange comfort. It means safety, survival, warmth. Someone nearby starts rubbing sticks together, a motion both mundane and miraculous. The first technology of the night. The first ritual. When the ember finally catches, a small gasp ripples through the group. For a moment, you see joy, an early kind of celebration. It's not just about heat. It's about control. Fire is the first thing you ever tamed. You look up, watching the smoke climb into the air like a thin gray spirit. It twists and disappears, merging with the damp morning. For ancient people, this was probably the first sign of transcendence, something invisible moving upward, something that connected the ground to the sky. A quirky detail. In some prehistoric cave floors, archaeologists found that ashes were intentionally spread under sleeping areas, like a soft bedding layer. The ash kept insects away, absorbed moisture, and added a faint smell of warmth even when the fire was out. You picture it, lying on the scent of old fire, a comfort no mattress could copy. You turn the idea over in your head. Fire wasn't just for survival, it was the first form of intimacy. Around it, people gathered, shared warmth, maybe even learn trust. To sleep near someone meant to share their heat, their scent, their vulnerability. That's civilization beginning to flicker. The world outside glows faintly blue now, the sky pale behind the hills. Birds start calling, a reminder that night is over, though in this age, day brings no less danger. The predators rest now, the hunt begins. You know that fire will wait here, guarding the sleeping cave, its ashes breathing softly. As you stand to leave, you can't help but glance back. The fire has already begun to sink. Its edges collapse inward, its glow turning from gold to a faint heartbeat red. It looks fragile, almost alive, like something that needs your affection. You remember this moment even now, across tens of thousands of years. Every time you light a candle, every time you stare into a campfire, every time you sit by a lamp's glow when you can't sleep. That primal comfort runs in your blood, as familiar as warmth itself. You imagine for a moment being there again, crouched before that tiny blaze, surrounded by night so absolute it feels endless. Your eyes heavy, your skin warm, your heartbeat steadying with the rhythm of the flame. And before the first words, before the first stories, before the first names for love or fear, there was this. Just you, the fire, and the silence of the earth. Sleep has its own language long before words appear. It whispers in sighs, in breaths that lengthen and deepen, in the soft hum of bodies surrendering to night. You lie close to the fire, its glow flickering on the rock walls, the light pulsing like a heartbeat. Smoke drifts upward, tracing faint patterns that dissolve into darkness. The air feels thick with warmth and the faint musk of burnt wood. You're not thinking, not the way you do now. Thoughts are more like sensations, colors, shapes, impressions that move without edges. And yet, somewhere in that fog, a dream begins. It starts with motion, the rush of animals, the chase of wind, the crack of thunder in the distance. Then the world shifts, becoming softer, stranger. You float, or maybe crawl, through something that's half memory, half imagination. You see the face of someone gone, a voice that doesn't exist, the outline of a tree that bends in impossible ways. When you wake, you have no name for any of it. You just carry a feeling, a ghost that lingers through the next day. Historians still argue whether early humans dreamed like we do, with narratives and emotion, or if dreams were abstract, primal bursts of instinct and sensation. Some anthropologists believe dreams were the first rehearsal halls for survival, a place to practice fear, to imagine danger before it happened. The mind's secret training ground. And perhaps, in that twilight between waking and sleep, the first spark of language was born, a gesture that tried to explain the unexplainable. You point to the stars, mimic the shape of a running animal, hum a sound that somehow feels like rain. The others nod, half understanding. Maybe that's how words began, not as commands, but as memories of dreams. You stare into the fire and wonder what your ancestors saw when they closed their eyes. Without symbols or stories, what could the mind build? The earliest cave paintings, drawn tens of thousands of years later, feel like dream echoes. Bison that float, hunters who blend with shadows, red spirals that look like visions caught in motion. Some scholars say these images weren't art at all, but records of dreams. A quirky finding, pigments from ancient caves show traces of hallucinogenic plants. Inhaling the smoke or touching the wet paint might have triggered trance states, waking dreams. Maybe prehistoric humans sought to paint what they dreamed. You shift your weight, lying on your side, one arm under your head. The ground is hard, but the rhythm of the fire and the soft breaths around you create a strange peace. You drift again, this time slower. In this second sleep, the boundary between dream and waking dissolves. You hear voices, not real words, just tonal patterns, the rise and fall of breath that sounds almost like speech. You imagine you understand. The mind is inventing meaning out of rhythm. And here, in this fragile half-sleep, something new is forming, imagination. The ability to hold an image in the dark and believe it's real. From that ability, everything else will come: language, story, art, faith. You dream again, and in the dream, the fire becomes a creature. It moves with you, protecting you from the blackness that stretches on forever. Its warmth feels like companionship. You reach out your hand, and the flame bends toward your touch. When you open your eyes, dawn hasn't come yet. The fire still glows, quiet and low, the embers pulsing softly like veins of light. You can't explain the dream, but you feel something different. A new awareness, maybe even reverence. You're not alone in this feeling. Around the world, across countless generations, the same pattern repeats. People dream beside the fire and wake believing that something unseen speaks through it. Out of this mystery will grow the first myths of spirits in flames, ancestors in smoke, gods in the stars. Historians trace religion's roots to fear, to wonder, to gratitude. But maybe it all began here, in that strange overlap of dream and firelight, when early humans first felt watched, not by predators, but by the night itself. You roll onto your back and look up. The sky, black as stone, is crowded with white dust, stars burning across infinity. You can't name them, but they feel alive, shifting, pulsing like eyes. You close your eyes again. The memory of your dream still clings to you, wrapping around your senses like smoke. Somewhere deep inside, you start to hum a low note. It isn't a word, not yet. It's just sound, comfort, a bridge between worlds. And in that moment, lying there beside the dying fire, you become something more than animal. The first dreamer, whispering to the dark, inventing meaning where none existed. The chorus of the night surrounds you, even as your body slips between wakefulness and sleep. Outside the cave, the wilderness hums in layers, the rustle of grass underfoot, the gentle snap of branches, the distant howl of predators. Each sound carries a warning, a secret code that your ancestors learned to decipher. You listen, half-conscious, translating every rustle and squeak, learning a language older than words. The wind moves through the cave's entrance, curling like a living thing. You smell damp earth, wet fur, the faint tang of dried blood. Your muscles tense without thought, your heart aware of every whisper of motion beyond the firelight. Safety is fleeting here. Comfort is a fragile illusion held together by vigilance and warmth. Historians still argue whether early humans could truly relax at night. Some suggest that the very first sleeping humans experienced hyperalert states, bodies coiled with tension as if the mind refused to rest. Others believe that social bonds and the fire itself created a sense of security sufficient for rest. Either way, sleep was never a simple surrender. You glance at the others. One man stirs, scratches at a mosquito bite, then settles again. A child rests her head against a parent's chest rising and falling in rhythm with the faint pop of embers. You sense an unspoken agreement. Tonight, we share watchfulness and warmth together. The first experiments in communal living are written not in stone tablets, but in shared breaths and the unspoken trust that none will falter. The world is alive with sound. Insects hum, their wings brushing the humid air. Somewhere, water trickles over stones, a gentle rhythm beneath the more urgent whispers of distant predators. Wolves call across the valleys, their voices eerie, haunting. You recognize the melody instinctively, a signal of territory, a reminder that you are not the only life navigating this fragile ecosystem. You adjust your position near the fire. Its heat radiates against your skin, and the flicker casts moving shadows that dance across the walls like silent phantoms. It's almost hypnotic. In fact, some researchers suggest that early humans may have used firelight as a natural aid for relaxation, the soft rhythm of flame helping them drift into the fragmented sleep cycles that dominate prehistoric life. Quirky evidence supports this. In certain Paleolithic sites, repeated patterns of fire placement suggest that groups deliberately built hearths to maximize comfort and minimize risk. For instance, placing stones around embers to reflect heat and provide safety zones. It's a combination of instinct and emerging strategy, a mix of survival and the first sparks of design. Moonlight begins to seep through the entrance, pale and silver. It touches the rocks with delicate fingers, creating faint reflections that dance alongside the firelight. These twin lights, fire and moon, structure your perception of night. The shadows bend and stretch, offering both camouflage and mystery. You find yourself staring into them, imagining shapes that may or may not exist, practicing the imagination that will later fuel myth, art, and story. Your senses extend beyond the cave. Every rustle of grass, every flash of movement in the periphery, sharpens your awareness while lulling you with rhythm. The world outside is dangerous, yes, but alive, a symphony of sounds and scents that guide you through the night. To sleep here is to negotiate with life and death, to surrender while staying alert. As you close your eyes again, the chorus of night continues, the layered music of an ancient earth that has existed long before you and will continue long after. It hums in your bones, and in the tender half-light of fire and moon, you drift toward sleep once more, a small participant in a ritual as old as humanity itself. You wake again, this time with the ground pressing firmly beneath your body. It's rough, uneven, and colder than you expected, but somehow comforting, a reminder that the earth itself supports you, even when nothing else can be trusted. You shift slightly, moving your shoulders and hips to find a spot that eases the tension in your muscles. Every night is a negotiation with gravity, with bone, with flesh. The first humans didn't have mattresses, feather beds, or soft blankets. Instead, they layered leaves, grasses, animal hides, and even ashes beneath their bodies. These early beds were surprisingly clever. Crushed plant material could insulate against cold, absorb moisture, and keep insects at bay. Archaeological sites in Europe and Africa reveal the earliest evidence of these arrangements, soft, rudimentary, but effective. You imagine laying down in a nest of dried ferns, the smell of earth and smoke mingling, and you can feel the ingenuity behind it. Historians still argue whether this bedding was a matter of comfort or purely survival. Some suggest it may have been a status symbol within small bands, with certain individuals receiving the softest sleeping areas. Others claim that the arrangement of these nests was purely functional, a calculated effort to survive nights that could otherwise kill you. Either way, the desire to improve sleep, even in its simplest form, speaks to a very human trait: innovation. You roll onto your side and close your eyes for a moment. The firelight casts shifting shadows across the walls, and the coals are a steady warmth against the chill creeping in from the cave mouth. Outside, the wind hums through rocks and trees, carrying scents of earth, water, and distant animals. Each smell is a signal, a message to your ancestors. This place is safe for now. A quirky tidbit: some of the earliest bedding sites show evidence of crushed medicinal herbs mixed with leaves and grasses. Historians theorize these were not just for comfort or insulation. They may have been early forms of natural insect repellents or even aromatic sleep aids. You lie back, inhaling faint traces of aromatic foliage, imagining that soft, soothing scent lulling early humans into slumber. The sense of community is palpable. Nearby, others stir and adjust their positions. The rhythm of their breathing synchronizes almost unknowingly. Some watch the fire, some glance at the entrance, while the smallest child curls tightly against a parent. This is the first lesson in cooperation, shared warmth, and vigilance. Each body contributes to the group's survival, and in turn, the group ensures safety and comfort for all. Fire remains your silent guardian. Its glow dances across the cave walls, illuminating rough-hewn stalactites, small piles of stored food, and the impressions of countless nights slept in this hollow. The very act of tending the fire becomes a ritual, adding sticks, stirring embers, checking for weak spots that could allow the flames to falter. Without this vigilance, the night could be perilous, yet this task is intertwined with rest, a delicate balance of attention and surrender. The night sounds persist, insects hum, distant predators call, water trickles. But within this bubble of warmth and companionship, you feel secure. The careful arrangement of hides, leaves, and embers has transformed the cave from a dangerous shelter to a place of fleeting safety. Every subtle decision, from placement of coals to layering of grass, is a testament to human ingenuity and the relentless pursuit of comfort. Your body begins to yield again to the gentle pull of sleep. You feel the subtle vibration of coals beneath your fingertips, smell the mix of smoke and earth, and hear the collective breathing of your small band. For a brief moment, everything outside the cave, everything that hunts and prowls, fades away. You are a part of the warmth, the fire, the ground, and it cradles you as nothing else can. In this space, sleep becomes more than rest. It is reflection, preparation, imagination, and ritual. The first humans discovered that comfort could be manufactured from the elements, that vulnerability could coexist with protection, and that even in the wildest night, ingenuity and instinct could create a fragile sanctuary. Somewhere in the half-light, movement stirs. Not a predator, not yet, but one of your companions. A figure whose role in the group is clear without words. It's the first form of night watch, an instinctive rotation that ensures someone is always alert while others sleep. The notion of night shifts may feel mundane today, but for early humans, it was survival incarnate. You listen as the watcher moves quietly, crouching near the coals, eyes scanning shadows, ears attuned to even the smallest noises. Their presence is a comfort, not spoken, but deeply understood. You feel a subtle relaxation wash over you, allowing you to sink deeper into your rest, yet remain subconsciously aware that someone is awake, guarding the fragile life of the group. Historians still argue whether these rotations were structured or spontaneous. Some anthropologists propose that early humans intuitively divided responsibilities to maximize survival, while others suggest that watchfulness was opportunistic, driven by individual anxiety. Either way, you recognize the brilliance. The communal approach to night safety allowed the group to rest while still minimizing risk. Outside the cave, the world continues its symphony. The distant howl of wolves, the rustle of grass in the wind, and the hum of insects create a layered soundscape that shapes consciousness. You realize that every subtle vibration in the air conveys information, the proximity of predators, the presence of prey, or simply the rhythm of the planet itself. Sleep is not just a physiological need, it is a dance with the environment, an ongoing negotiation between rest and alertness. Your gaze shifts to the fire. Though low, it pulses with life, radiating warmth that touches your skin, flickering shadows that move like living beings across the rock walls. The fire acts as both sentinel and companion, a partner in this nocturnal ritual. Its presence allows the mind to wander, to imagine, to dream. You think about how this simple technology became a cornerstone of human evolution, not just survival, but creativity, storytelling, and imagination. A quirky archaeological note: some evidence suggests that early humans arranged their sleeping areas around the fire in deliberate patterns. Stones, branches, and bedding materials were positioned to optimize warmth and visibility. This wasn't merely practical. It was strategic, a conscious design that balanced risk with comfort, illustrating a sophisticated understanding of the environment. As the night deepens, the watcher's figure becomes almost ghost-like, a steady presence in the periphery of vision. You drift in and out of awareness, hearing the subtle crunch of leaves or the distant call of birds settling in before dawn. You start to feel the rhythm of the group, the synchronous breathing, the quiet pulse of life moving collectively through darkness. Firelight, shadows, wind, and whispers of movement all blend together, forming an unspoken symphony that guides early humans into rest. Every flicker, every subtle sound, is part of a protective system honed over millennia. The night becomes a living entity, responsive and intimate. And as your own body relaxes once more, you sense that these early practices, watchfulness, shared warmth, strategic sleeping arrangements, are the origins of community, trust, and the rituals that later define civilization. Sleep here is not passive. It is active, a careful choreography between human ingenuity and the unpredictable world outside. In this interplay of alertness and surrender, the first humans discover something profound. Safety and rest are intertwined, and even in the wildest night, survival is a collaborative act. The moon climbs slowly, pale and deliberate, casting its cool light across the cave entrance. You watch the glow spill over the rocks, contrasting with the warm firelight flickering behind you. The world outside takes on a strange clarity, shadows stretched and bent, familiar shapes transformed into something mystical. You feel both grounded and suspended, aware of the earth beneath you and the vastness above. For early humans, the moon wasn't just a celestial body. It was a clock, a guide, and eventually, a source of myth. Its phases dictated hunting patterns, foraging schedules, and perhaps even early rituals. Imagine being entirely dependent on these cues, the waxing light signaling opportunity, the new moon hiding danger in shadow. Every rise and fall of the lunar disk carried weight. You roll slightly on the ground, feeling the cold stone press through the hides beneath you. The interplay of fire and moonlight paints ghostly shapes on the cave walls. These shadows are more than decoration, they are the first stage for imagination. Maybe one of your companions points at the flicker, mimicking the motion of a predator, or tracing shapes that will later become the inspiration for cave art. Scholars still debate whether early humans used shadows and light intentionally to tell stories, or if it was purely incidental. Either way, the result is mesmerizing. Outside, the chorus of night continues. Insects drone, their wings vibrating against the humid air. The rustle of grass hints at unseen creatures. Somewhere, the distant howl of a predator reminds you that the world is alive with danger. And yet, the moon's glow offers reassurance, a silver sentinel in the sky that marks the passage of time and softens the edges of fear. A quirky tidbit: some anthropologists suggest that early humans may have seen the moon as a protective presence, a godlike figure watching over them during the vulnerable hours of sleep. The moon was a constant companion, an anchor for imagination and ritual long before formal religion emerged. You imagine reaching out as if you could touch that pale disk, feeling the cool energy of its light mix with the warmth of the fire. There's a subtle interplay here, a balance between opposites, heat and cold, safety and danger, waking and sleeping. Every sensory input is heightened at night, and your mind, freed from the distractions of daylight, begins to wander. The moonlight touches a pile of stones near the fire. Their jagged edges glint faintly, creating a natural mosaic. You might not know it yet, but humans have always been drawn to patterns: the arrangement of stones, the flicker of fire, the shimmer of the moon. It is the first hint of aesthetic awareness, a subtle recognition of order in chaos. In the silence between sounds, you feel the intimacy of the moment. The group sleeps around the fire, but the moonlight stretches beyond the cave mouth, connecting the small community to the vast wilderness outside. There's a poetry here, a lesson in awareness. Even in darkness, there is structure, rhythm, and beauty. As you drift toward another sleep, your mind touches the earliest myths forming in the hearts of those around you. Spirits in the sky, gods in the moon, omens in the shadows, all emerge from this delicate balance of light and dark, warmth and cold, imagination and survival. And for a fleeting moment, you sense that this delicate dance between fire and moon, between earth and sky, between fear and comfort, is what will eventually guide humanity into storytelling, ritual, and wonder. You are a witness to it, as if time itself bends softly around the embers and silver light. The night stretches on, slower now, measured in subtle rhythms rather than hours. You feel the gentle pull of exhaustion return, the body's ancient cue to surrender. Around you, the others are deeply asleep, breathing in synchrony with the fire's fading pulse. Even the youngest child rests undisturbed, a tiny bundle of warmth and trust. You lie still, listening to the orchestra of the wild. Somewhere, water trickles over smooth stones, creating a soft, constant background hum. Insects hum and skitter across leaves. A distant animal shifts, its weight pressing into the earth. Each sound is meaningful, a map, a guide, a warning, yet it blends seamlessly into the ambient quiet. Your ears, sharpened by necessity, decipher the rhythm instinctively. Sleep in these early days is not an uninterrupted luxury. Anthropologists suggest it came in stages: a light doze, punctuated by periods of alertness, followed by deeper rest. You can feel it now, the half-sleep, the edge where dreams begin to intrude on the body's awareness. You sense movement in the periphery and instinctively tense, even as your mind drifts. Firelight flickers across the cave walls, creating ephemeral murals. Shadows of bodies, tools, and rocks morph into fantastical shapes. Maybe one of your companions dreams and mutters softly, or reaches a hand toward the coals, instinctively seeking warmth. This interplay of light, shadow, and movement becomes the backdrop for imagination. Scholars still debate whether such visual stimuli influenced the first symbolic thinking. Some argue that observing shadows and fire patterns laid the groundwork for ritual and early art. You shift slightly, letting the warmth of the embers seep into your limbs. The contrast between the cold stone and the heat of the fire teaches a subtle lesson. Comfort is relative, shaped by attention and adaptation. Survival depends not only on reaction but anticipation, understanding how heat, light, and touch interact to preserve life. A quirky detail, evidence from early human sites suggests that embers were sometimes carefully moved to shape sleeping areas or create warmth zones. People were not passive observers of fire, they manipulated it to suit their needs, marking the first instances of deliberate environmental control. You can feel that instinct alive in your own subtle adjustments tonight, rolling, shifting, making a fragile nest from leaves, ash, and stone. Outside, the first hints of dawn tease the horizon. The moon dips lower, and the wind shifts slightly, bringing new scents of vegetation, water, and distant animal life. You take it in, mind and body attuned to the small signals that could mean life or death. Even in these moments of rest, survival requires subtle awareness. The edge of danger never fully disappears. You feel a curious reverence for this fragile balance. Fire and stone, light and shadow, awareness and surrender, each element teaches patience, attention, and adaptation. In these rhythms, early humans not only survived, but learned the first lessons in reflection, cooperation, and improvisation. As your eyelids finally grow heavy, you imagine the continuity, night after night, generation after generation. Humans learning to rest while remaining alive, the first communal understanding of safety and vigilance, a ritual as old as thought itself. And in this delicate interplay of darkness, warmth, and sound, you drift again, suspended between the instinctual and the imaginative, becoming part of a long lineage of sleepers who learned the world through the night. The horizon begins to lighten with an almost imperceptible gray wash, the first hint of morning seeping into the cave entrance. You stir, the coals now mere glowing embers, the fire reduced to a faint heartbeat of warmth. Your muscles protest the shift from rest to motion, but you move carefully, mindful of the sleeping forms around you. Every adjustment, every step, is a negotiation between caution and curiosity. Outside, the air is damp, carrying the earthy scent of night lingering in the soil. You step lightly across the rough ground, the chill pressing against your skin. Your companions begin to murmur and stretch, one by one, signaling the subtle awakening of the group. Even in sleep, humans maintained rhythm, the unspoken timing of cycles learned over countless nights. Anthropologists suggest these patterns shaped early communal living, teaching coordination without words. You approach the fire, now a cluster of warm stones. The ritual of rekindling it begins. A few small sticks, some dry moss, a spark, and life returns to the coals. Fire is not just warmth. It is a marker of presence, of survival, a communal heartbeat that echoes across generations. Historians still argue whether fire management was instinctual or learned through trial and error. Likely, it was both, evolving over millennia into the sophisticated knowledge that fuels civilization today. You notice your hands are blackened with soot, the smell clinging to skin and hair. A quirky tidbit: in some ancient camps, traces of ash found on hands and faces suggest a dual purpose, not just practical, but ritualistic, perhaps a mark of identity or protection. You inhale deeply, the smoke and earth mingling, and sense the continuity of human practice. The group stirs fully. The child stretches, yawns, and rubs their eyes, a motion unchanged across the millennia. A soft exchange of sounds occurs, a grunt here, a hum there, and you realize these are the earliest forms of communication, precursors to language. Intent, emotion, and meaning begin to emerge through subtle vocalizations, gestures, and proximity. You look beyond the cave mouth. The first pale light glints off distant hills, hinting at a world filled with promise and danger alike. Your senses sharpen again, remembering that night's vigilance must now give way to the day's work, hunting, gathering, observing. The mind that rested and dreamed will now navigate, calculate, and improvise. Firelight, now waning, casts a delicate glow on the cave walls. You trace shadows with your eyes, recognizing shapes that have fascinated humans for tens of thousands of years. The curve of a rock, the outline of a stick, the abstract impression of movement captured in transient light. Some scholars propose that these observations seeded the first artistic expressions, the origin of symbolic thought. You take a deep breath, feeling the cool morning air filling your lungs. The cave, once a haven in darkness, now transforms into a stage for life and labor. Safety and comfort, observation and action. These dualities are constants. In this liminal hour between night and day, the wisdom of the ancestors whispers, survival is not merely physical, it is learned through attention, adaptation, and community. And as the first sounds of daytime creatures stir beyond the entrance, you sense the continuity of human experience, the eternal interplay of night and day, rest and activity, vulnerability and mastery. The rhythm of life pulses quietly but insistently, an inheritance you carry, unbroken, across millennia. The morning stretches, slow and deliberate, and you rise fully now, muscles stiff but alive. You feel the cool stone beneath your feet as you move carefully, mindful of the group beginning to rouse. Sounds of rustling, quiet murmurs, and the crackle of rekindled embers fill the cave. The world outside is waking too, birds call, insects hum, and distant water trickles over stones, creating a soft, constant rhythm. You step to the cave entrance, inhaling deeply. The air is crisp, carrying the smell of damp earth, plants, and the faint musk of distant animals. Everything is saturated with life, a sensory overload that demands both caution and attention. Your ancestors relied on this heightened awareness to navigate their environment, to survive, and to thrive. Sleep was never complete surrender, it was intertwined with observation and instinct. Historians still debate whether early humans understood the concept of time as we do. Perhaps their days were dictated by light and shadow, hunger and thirst, the rise and fall of predators. Sleep was a functional component, embedded within cycles of survival, reflection, and learning. Even rest carried purpose. It was a rehearsal, a recharge, and a preparation for what the day demanded. You notice the fire now, reduced to a cluster of red embers. Rekindling it requires care, a spark from flint, dry moss, or kindling, and the moment it catches is almost sacred. Fire is warmth, yes, but also a social glue, a shared heartbeat for your small band. You watch as others add tiny sticks, coaxing life back into the flame. The act is simple yet profound, a blend of instinct, skill, and community. A quirky fact: some early human camps show evidence of fire pits placed not just for warmth, but for social cohesion. Archaeologists suggest that the arrangement encouraged conversation, storytelling, and collective problem-solving. The fire itself became a tool for memory, imagination, and the first sparks of culture. You crouch near the coals, noticing the interplay of shadows across the cave walls. Shapes twist and bend, ephemeral yet compelling. Perhaps this is the first stage of creativity, recognizing patterns, assigning meaning, and exploring them in imagination. Scholars still argue whether early humans consciously experimented with symbolic thought or if it emerged organically through observation and play. Either way, the potential for story and myth was already present. The group begins to stir fully, stretching and shaking off the residue of half-sleep. The child yawns and rubs eyes, leaning into the warmth of a parent's body. The rhythm of breathing, the shared warmth, the subtle attentiveness, it is all a silent language, teaching trust, cooperation, and empathy. In these interactions, humans discover the roots of social structures and communal care. Outside, the first pale sunlight brushes the hills, illuminating distant trees, rocks, and the faint shimmer of water. You stand at the threshold, feeling the boundary between the cave's safety and the world beyond. Here, survival is constant negotiation between fire and cold, vigilance and rest, fear and trust. And within that delicate balance, early humans carve out their lives, learning not just to survive, but to anticipate, to collaborate, and to imagine. In this fragile hour, as day asserts itself overnight, You sense the invisible continuity, the knowledge, instincts, and rituals that will be carried forward, refined, and eventually form the backbone of human civilization. The sun climbs higher, spilling golden light across the cave entrance. Shadows retreat slowly, stretching long and thin before disappearing entirely. You stand, feeling the warmth seep into your skin, a quiet contrast to the cool stones of the night. The cave, once a sanctuary, now transforms into a hub of activity, a stage where daily survival begins anew. You watch your companions emerge from their resting positions, stretching, yawning, rubbing sleep from eyes. Movements are deliberate yet instinctive, the same motions repeated countless times across generations. Early humans developed routines without writing or clocks, guided instead by circadian rhythms, environmental cues, and the subtle language of observation. Historians still debate whether these patterns were instinctual or culturally reinforced, but the evidence is clear: communal rhythm was essential for survival. You step outside, feeling the uneven earth underfoot. Grass brushes against your ankles, dew soaking through your hides. Every sound, scent, and motion matters. The distant call of a predator, the rustle of prey in the undergrowth, the whisper of wind through trees. Sensory awareness remains heightened, carried over from the night's vigilance. Sleep here is an active process, preparing mind and body for the demands of daylight. Fire continues to burn, its smoke curling into the brightening sky. Rekindling it each morning is a ritual, a reminder of agency and continuity. Without this small control, the day could feel overwhelming, but tending the fire restores a sense of mastery. You notice small details: the pattern of coals, the placement of stones, the subtle warmth reflecting off your companions' hides. These observations, repeated daily, form the first lessons in environmental mastery. Quirky evidence. In some Paleolithic sites, repeated hearth placement suggests early humans were strategic, creating sleeping and gathering zones that optimized safety and warmth. This implies a proto-architecture, a conscious understanding of space and function, long before formal structures existed. You trace your fingers across stones, imagining hands like yours arranging them carefully, night after night. The child moves closer to you, eyes bright and curious. The quiet interaction, a nudge, a small smile, a protective gesture, is a lesson in empathy and communal care. Shared sleep, shared warmth, shared attention. These are the earliest forms of social education, where trust and cooperation are learned without words. Historians argue that such communal practices were fundamental in shaping human society, creating the networks that would later define culture and civilization. The sun rises further, warming your face, illuminating the textures of rocks, hides, and foliage. You inhale the mix of scents, smoke, earth, water, plant life, and feel the intricate interconnection of your small band with the environment. Every survival decision, every instinctive movement, every whispered adjustment in the night contributes to the collective knowledge that ensures continuity. As the morning progresses, the world beyond the cave awakens fully. Animals stir, wind shifts, and the landscape comes alive with opportunity and danger. And within this evolving tableau, you sense the rhythm that governs all human experience: vigilance, rest, adaptation, and imagination intertwined, shaping the journey from survival to consciousness. Mid-morning settles gently, a soft light filling every corner of the cave. The air smells of smoke, damp earth, and the faint sweetness of crushed vegetation underfoot. You move deliberately, careful not to disturb those still lingering in slumber or half-conscious waking. Even in daylight, attention to your surroundings is instinctive, a thread connecting body and mind to survival. You begin to inspect the fire, now reduced to scattered embers. Rekindling it will be necessary for cooking, warmth, and signaling. Fire has always been more than heat. It is a focal point, a communal anchor, a tangible expression of mastery over nature. Early humans understood its value instinctively, yet scholars still debate how conscious that understanding was. Some argue it was learned through trial, others suggest an innate recognition of its necessity. Either way, its role in daily life was transformative. Around you, companions stir. Conversations are wordless or limited to gestures and hums. Coordination emerges through observation and experience rather than formal language. The child stretches, reaching toward the embers, inhaling their faint warmth and light. These moments are lessons in trust and attentiveness, subtle communication teaching both protection and empathy. Anthropologists note that such interactions were crucial in shaping the social fabric of early human communities. Quirky evidence shows that certain hearths were placed strategically to maximize both warmth and visibility. Early humans may have been among the first to consider interior design for functionality, arranging stones, embers, and bedding in ways that served multiple purposes: heat distribution, safety, and social cohesion. You imagine these choices as early experiments in spatial awareness, laying the foundation for architecture millennia later. Beyond the cave, the environment pulses with activity. Birds chirp, small mammals rustle through foliage, and distant water gurgles over rocks. Each sound conveys information: threat, opportunity, or neutral presence. You instinctively parse these cues, a skill honed over countless generations. The connection between sound and survival is intimate. You rely on it, even as the comforting heat of the fire reminds you of human ingenuity. Historians still argue whether early humans consciously taught each other these survival cues or absorbed them through mimicry and repetition. Likely both methods coexisted, blending instinct, observation, and the first forms of structured learning. Every movement and gesture carries knowledge, passed silently through the rhythm of daily life. You pause and take in the scene: fire, companions, the cave's rough walls, and the world outside stretching into morning. Here, comfort, alertness, and imagination intertwine seamlessly. The first humans mastered the delicate dance of observation, reflection, and communal support. You feel the continuity, a thread linking past to present, weaving together the raw necessity of survival with the earliest sparks of culture. By midday, the cave is alive with motion. Companions stretch, forage nearby, and tend to small tasks. The once threatening wilderness now feels manageable, tempered by fire, shared vigilance, and the knowledge embedded in collective experience. You move among them, participating in subtle coordination, adjusting bedding, arranging embers, and observing the surrounding terrain. These are small acts, but each contributes to survival, comfort, and the rhythm of daily life. You pause to examine the fire. Even as embers wane, their warmth radiates subtly, a reminder of continuity and control. Fire is no longer merely functional. It is central to human cognition and social cohesion. Anthropologists suggest that tending fires promoted not just survival, but conversation, imagination, and teaching. Around a shared flame, humans began developing symbolic thought, early storytelling, and cooperative strategy. Historians still debate whether this was intentional or an emergent effect of communal living, but the evidence is compelling. A quirky fact: traces of pigments and crushed plants found near hearths suggest that early humans may have combined their daily rituals with experimental art or natural fragrances. Perhaps painting on stones, creating simple patterns, or inhaling aromatic herbs was part of early attempts to manipulate the environment and consciousness, proto-creativity arising alongside necessity. You shift your gaze outside the cave. The terrain stretches into undulating hills, rocky outcrops, and patches of grass. Movement in the distance, small mammals, birds, and insects alerts your instincts. Sleep, vigilance, and wakefulness are intertwined. Even while resting previously, your mind trained to parse danger now continues the task seamlessly. Every sound, every motion, carries potential meaning. The child plays nearby, imitating movements observed from adults. In these seemingly trivial acts, the first lessons in learning, imitation, and socialization take root. Shared sleep, shared observation, shared fire. These are early forms of education, the roots of cultural transmission. You notice shadows cast by the brightening sun on the cave walls, forming abstract patterns. Maybe this is the spark of imagination, seeing movement and shapes, assigning meaning, practicing creativity. Scholars still debate whether early humans consciously created symbolic representation or if perception naturally gave rise to art. Either way, The groundwork for narrative, myth, and identity is quietly emerging in these simple observations. The day moves forward, the group engages in practical tasks, but the lessons of night linger. Vigilance, cooperation, attention to the environment, and the creative use of resources all become second nature. Sleep was not an escape but a rehearsal for life, blending survival instincts with emerging cognition, imagination, and social complexity. And as you glance around the cave, noting embers, bedding, and companions, you sense the invisible continuum, a legacy of nights spent in firelight, shadows, and dreams, shaping humanity long before words or art formalized their existence. The afternoon sun filters through the cave entrance, warm and steady, casting long, soft shadows across rough stone and scattered leaves. You stretch, feeling the muscles loosen from hours of cautious rest and activity. The cave, once a sanctuary in darkness, now exists as a stage for life, alive with sound, movement, and subtle lessons learned through observation. You move among your companions, attending to small tasks, rearranging bedding, tending embers, inspecting food stores. Each act feels instinctive yet deliberate. Even in this seemingly mundane rhythm, survival skills are reinforced, memory is sharpened, and knowledge passes silently through gestures and observation. Anthropologists note that early humans relied on these subtleties, absorbing social cues and environmental signals without formal instruction. The fire still glows faintly, a warm pulse anchoring the group. Rekindling it earlier was a ritual, a blend of control, skill, and shared attention. Now, even as the embers fade, they carry lessons: the importance of preparation, the subtle coordination of communal activity, and the comfort provided by a managed environment. Historians still debate whether this control over fire contributed directly to cognitive development, but the link seems undeniable. A quirky tidbit: in some Paleolithic sites, embers were moved and stored strategically to maximize longevity and heat efficiency. Early humans displayed remarkable foresight, blending instinct with emerging problem-solving abilities. You notice yourself mimicking similar careful motions, adjusting stones, smoothing leaves, continuing a practice honed over countless generations. Outside, the world hums with activity. Birds dart between trees, insects hum over foliage, and the distant water murmurs over stones. Your senses, trained overnight and honed through shared vigilance, detect subtle cues: a rustle in the grass, a faint scent carried on the wind. Sleep may have been intermittent, fragmented, but it never interrupted awareness. You glance at the child, now more active, imitating movements, observing gestures, practicing coordination. The lessons of night continue through day: vigilance, cooperation, observation, and subtle social learning. These small patterns, repeated across generations, are the invisible foundation of culture, the unrecorded curriculum of survival and imagination. Shadows of fire, stone, and the brightening sun dance together, a quiet meditation on the interplay of light and dark, vulnerability and mastery. Sleep, once precarious, now emerges as a tool for reflection, memory consolidation, learning, and communal bonding. And as evening will inevitably return, you sense the continuity of human experience. Nights spent in firelight, the careful negotiation of comfort and danger, the first stirrings of imagination and ritual. Sleep, vigilance, cooperation, and creativity, all interwoven, forming the quiet, invisible scaffolding of civilization itself. The light softens as the day drifts toward evening. You lie back, letting muscles stretch and relax fully, feeling the warmth of the sun fading into a gentle coolness. Shadows lengthen, brushing across the cave walls and floor, and a hush falls over the group. The air carries the faint hum of the wilderness, distant birds, soft rustle of leaves, and the gentle trickle of water. You inhale slowly, letting your senses absorb the calm. The rhythm of the fire, the patterns of shadow and light, the subtle motion of companions settling into rest, all of it blends into a lullaby older than memory. The night will come again, bringing its whispers and vigilance, yet now, in this suspended moment, there is nothing urgent. Safety, warmth, and quiet attention have converged to cradle both body and mind. You feel your heartbeat slow, your mind drifting between reflection and imagination. The lessons of night, of fire, of communal care, rise gently like a tide, not pressing, not demanding, but offering reassurance. Even as the world continues beyond the cave, beyond your awareness, the knowledge of survival, cooperation, and creativity persists, a subtle thread woven through every breath. Close your eyes and picture the first humans resting beside the fire, shadows dancing, stories forming silently in imagination, the moon overhead, stars faintly glimmering. Inhale the earth, the smoke, the warmth, and exhale tension, worry, and the weight of awareness. Let the rhythm of night and day, of sleep and vigilance, carry you softly into your own rest. And as you drift deeper, know that you are part of this lineage, connected by instinct, creativity, and the quiet, enduring practice of human life. Let the whispers of firelight and moonlight guide you, and surrender gently to the comfort of sleep.